Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Very pleased to be able to introduce Faith Boice to us this morning. Faith is a fourth-generation Tucsonian, and she is heavily involved with preserving the Western heritage and is currently the president of the Empire Ranch Foundation. And you've been on the board of the foundation now since 2005, I understand, so very, very much involved. So you've also been on the Tucson Rodeo Parade Committee. That sounds like fun. Wow.
Yes.
Is the owner of the Boice Bookkeeping, offering mobile bookkeeping services for small businesses. So if any of you need that service, you know where to come. So Faith is here to talk to us about the Empire Ranch. It's located in the heart of a 45,000 acre La Cienegas National Conservation Area. Absolutely fabulous area. It was established in 1876. And Faith will be telling us about the four families, the two companies, the government agency, all the various bodies that have a role in the historic past and the present conservation of the future of the Empire Ranch. Following this talk, there'll be a carpool from here out to the Empire Ranch, driving out, and then a 1-hour docent-led tour, which is going to be fabulous. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Faith, who will tell us all about it. Thank you.
You are coming to all of our presentations from now on. I didn't call you because that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I didn't even have to do my first slide. You covered everything. That's awesome. So, as he mentioned, the ranch was established in 1876. These first 4 rooms here were the, I have a pointer, I forgot. Were at the beginning, and then it built south as time went on. So this is what it looked like in 1876, and this is what it still looks like today, thanks to the dedication of the Bureau of Land Management and the partnership that we have with the Bureau of Land Management. Okay, our first family came on scene. I'm going to read from the verbiage, so bear with me. Our first family first came on scene in November of 1875. Envision 23-year-old Walter Lennox Vail in Tucson's Cosmopolitan Hotel, writing to his younger brother, Edward Ned Vail. Walter, originally from New Jersey, traveled to Tucson from California to explore the possibility of making his fortune by ranching in southern Arizona. He writes, I reached this place 3 days ago, pretty well tired out, but considering the trip, I think I was in pretty good condition when I reached Tucson. I have been trying ever since. I came here to hire horses for the trip through the country, but I have not been able to do anything until this morning, which was to buy a mule. I was very much disappointed after I got here to find that it is impossible to buy any land unless you find a man who has been on his ground for 3 years. His title is of no account, and as the country is all new on the account of the Indian trouble, such places are hard to find. Walter was most favorably, I have barely had any coffee this morning. It's early, I'm sorry in advance. I can stand up here and free talk, but when I have to free, okay. So he was pretty impressed by what he saw. He said, I feel positive from all I hear that there is a fine grassland in this territory as there is in the world. I think myself that it is destined to be one of the richest states in the Union. It wasn't until the following year, in 1876, that Walter was able to return to Arizona with sufficient funds and with a partner, Englishman Herbert Hislock, to embark on his ranching venture. In August, they purchased for $2,000 a 160-acre homestead owned by Edward Fish in Simon Silverberg. Included in the purchase price was a 4-room, flat-topped adobe house. A central breezeway, or zaguan, bisected the rooms of the house and led to an adjoining adobe wall corral. In October of 1876, John Harvey, another English-born in Bermuda, joined the partnership, contributed much-needed capital for additional land and stock. Thus, the Vail, Hislock, and Harvey Company began, though it was most often referred to as the English Boys outfit. The homestead included a much valued critical component to ranching, dependable water from the Cienegas Creek. Yet the partners knew that in order to succeed, they must expand their stock and land holdings. Their first purchase was a neighboring ranch, which included a quarter section of land and a flock of sheep. In January of 1877, they purchased 733 cattle near Benson, Arizona, and disposed of the sheep. Later that year, Walter traveled to John Chisholm's ranch in New Mexico and purchased 40 Durham bulls. The first of the English boys to depart in 1878 was Herbert Hislock. He never adjusted to the rigors of frontier life and was worried about financial matters at home. In a letter to his sister, he expressed concerns about the lack of peace with his neighbors. Walter purchased Hislock's shares with money borrowed from his Aunt Anna Vail, and the corporate name was changed to Vail and Harvey Company. In 1879, during a tour of the ranch's northern pastures, Prosper and Empire Ranch cowhand John Dillon pointed out some likely silver-bearing formations in the Empire Mountains. Vail, Harvey, and Dillon registered a claim for the Total Wreck Mine, which proved highly successful. Developed in partnership with Walter's uncle Nathan Vail, the Total Wreck Mine began full operations in 1883 under the direction of Ned Vail. At its peak, the Total Wreck Mine camp boasted over 50 residences and commercial establishments. Revenue from the mine over $500,000 between 1881 and 1887 fueled the expansion of the ranch to over 100,000 acres. John Harvey left the partnership in 1881, selling his shares to Walter, who continued to develop and expand the business in partnership with other Vail family members as the Empire Land and Cattle Company. That same year, Walter returned to New Jersey to marry his longtime sweetheart, Margaret Newhall, and bring her to live on the Empire Ranch. Talk about culture shock. New Jersey to the Empire Ranch. Margaret chose to live at the ranch full-time, instead of setting up a home in Tucson, which was often the custom. The Empire was the first home for six of Walter and Margaret's 7 children. As the Empire Ranch expanded, so did the buildings at the ranch headquarters. By 1882, the original 4 rooms of the ranch house had grown to 22. Rooms for offices and staff were added behind the original 4-room structure. A gable-roofed Victorian addition became the family home. And outbuildings were constructed to support ranching operations. A little more than 10 years after starting the empire, Walter began to look for pastures in Southern California to ease overgrazing concerns. To fund this expansion, he took a new partner, Carroll W. Gates. By the early 1890s, when drought greatly affected southern Arizona, the importance of the California land holdings was clear. The Empire Ranch became a breeder operation that supplied the ranches in California. In 1896, the Vail family moved their home and business offices to Los Angeles. Management of the empire was initially left under the direction of Foreman Hayden B. McFadden. Harry Hefner managed the Empire Ranch from 1902 to 1905. Ironically, after surviving the Apache Wars and the hardships of remote ranching life in southern Arizona, Walter Vail's life was cut short when he was killed by a streetcar in Los Angeles in 1906. Can you imagine all that hard time? Walter's 17-year-old son, William Banning Vale, was sent to Arizona to learn the business and eventually take over operation of the empire. 17 years old. They don't make them like that anymore. There's like 3. Banning married a native Tucsonan, Laura Perry, in 1913, and they raised 3 children on the Empire Ranch. Laura, known as Dusty, William, known as Bill, and Tom. Banning and his family lived on the ranch until 1928, when our second family, the Boices, came on the scene. The Empire Ranch was purchased by the Chiricahua Ranches Company, successor to the well-known Chiricahua Cattle Company. The 3 Boice brothers, Henry Gudgel, Charles Gudgel, and Frank Seymour, were respected ranchers known for their promotion of the Hereford breed of cattle in the Southwest. This is my great-grandfather. Frank Boice and his wife Mary moved to the Empire Ranch in 1928, while the other brothers managed nearby operations that the family had purchased at the same time. So this is my great-grandmother, and I'm getting married this fall, and I'm wearing her ring that she wore on the ranch, and my mom also wore on the ranch, so I'm extremely proud to be able to carry on the tradition at the Empire Ranch. No, I don't get to live there. Everybody asks. All right. Frank and Mary became sole owners of the Empire in 1951. Frank managed the Empire for 28 years until his death in 1956. An engineer with degrees from Occidental College and MIT, he liked nothing better than building or repairing ranch equipment. He served as president of the Arizona Cattle Growers Association from 1935 to 1936 and was elected to the Cowboy Hall of Fame in 1958. Mary Boice participated in all facets of ranch life, including roundups, sorting, and shipping. She was a tough lady, but very kind, is the stories that I hear. Mary was also an avid and talented gardener. The house was surrounded by a lush lawn bordered with flower beds of tulips, irises, and roses. Huge trees provided ample shade. During the Boice period, rooms in the Victorian portion of the house were remodeled. Propane and eventually natural gas was piped into the house. A large electric walk-in refrigeration unit was installed. Plumbing was upgraded, and cement stucco was applied to the exterior house walls. A swimming pool was installed south of the house and became the focal point for family gatherings and parties. During these years, the Boices hosted numerous film stars, including John Wayne, as Hollywood romanticized the West in films such as Red River. Frank and Mary had 2 sons. Frank, known as Pancho, who is my grandfather, and Robert Grantham, known as Bob. As Pancho and Bob became adults and helped to manage the ranch, additional accommodations were required. A surplus house from the Army base at Fort Huachuca was purchased and installed west of the main house. Bob and his wife Miriam lived there and called it Bob's Casita. 2 of Bob and Miriam's 4 children were born during the time that they lived on the Empire. In 1956, the family relocated to manage the /S Ranch in Globe, Arizona. Pancho and his wife Sherry initially made their home in the small grove house located northwest of the ranch house. In the early 1950s, they moved to a newly constructed house on the hill north of the original ranch house. Pancho and Sherry raised 4 children, Steve, Kitty, Sherry, and Carol, on the Empire. That handsome fellow is my dad. In 1969, the Boices sold the Empire Ranch to Gulf American Corporation, which planned a large residential community and development on the Empire. Gulf American contracted with the Boice family to continue managing the Empire under lease arrangements. Pancho's son Steve took over sole responsibility for ranching on the Empire after Pancho's untimely death in 1973. My handsome dad. Thankfully, Gulf America's development plans were not realized, and in 1975, they sold the Empire to Animax Mining Company. Animax discontinued the Boices grazing lease on the Empire. Enter our third family, the Donaldsons. Animax leased the Empire to rancher John Donaldson. John's son Mac and his wife Billy moved to the Empire to partner with John. Both Donaldson families, including Mac and Billy's children, Alexa, Sam, and Renee, lived on the Empire until 1988. In 1988, the U.S. Bureau of Land Management acquired the Empire Ranch headquarters and surrounding 42,000 acres through a series of land swaps, creating the then named Empire Cienegas Resource Conservation Area. Legislation signed in December of 2000 redesignated the lands as the Las Cienegas National Conservation Area, assuring their preservation. John and Mac Donaldson and Mac's son Sam continued their grazing lease with the BLM until 2009, when our fourth family, the Tomlinsons, assumed the lease. The Tomlinson family owns the Vera Earl Ranch, which borders the Empire Ranch on the west and was established in 1968 by Burton and Betty Ann Beck. Ranching operations are managed by Ian Tomlinson, a grandson of the Becks. He and his wife Kristen and daughters Marin and Addison live in Sonoyta. The historic ranch buildings, unoccupied since 1988, had deteriorated and required help to save them. In 1998, a group of private citizens working in partnership with the BLM formed the Empire Ranch Foundation, also known as ERF, as a volunteer 501c3 charitable organization. The Empire Ranch Foundation is dedicated to preserving and interpreting the Empire Ranch historic buildings and surrounding landscape for future generations. Within a year of its establishment, the foundation had become heavily involved in preservation work as part of its partnership and assistance agreement with the BLM. Today, when you travel to the Empire Ranch, you'll be touring the Empire Ranch House, which underwent a major stabilization project between 2017 and 2018. You'll learn about the history of the ranch house and how it's been stabilized. A corps of dedicated volunteers with training and supervision from the BLM staff has devoted thousands of hours to smaller preservation projects. Volunteer days are held the first Saturday of every month. BLM and Empire Ranch Foundation work together for cultural resources, preservation, and adaptive reuse and interpretation. Through this partnership, we have researched the history of the ranch, developed plans for its preservation and interpretation, and have driven the implementation of those plans through hands-on work, grant writing, and raising funds. All told, the foundation has contributed over $500,000. And the BLM's Deferred Maintenance Program has contributed nearly $2.5 million for preservation work to restore the ranch house and the other 7 buildings at the headquarters. The Foundation's education program was launched in 2004 when 45 students and 4 teachers from a Tucson middle school traveled to the ranch for an intensive day of learning. Since that time, the annual Education Day has hosted hundreds of middle school students. To achieve our preservation and education mission, it is essential to build public awareness and a strong membership. With the assistance of Empire Ranch Foundation volunteers and BLM staff, the foundation sponsors events to raise public awareness, funds, and friends. Our annual Cowboy Festival draws more than 3,000. I have to update that because we had 3,000 that came last year. Over 2 days, not all at the same time, so I don't want to freak anybody out. There's not 3,000 all at once. Okay. So our annual Cowboy Festival draws more than 3,000 visitors who come to the ranch to enjoy Western heritage demonstrations, arena and livestock exhibits, cowboy cooking, and Western entertainment. So this is the flyer for the Cowboy Festival. I encourage you to follow us on Facebook, sign up for our email distribution list that sends out upcoming events. We just had one go out today. We do not sell our email list, so don't worry. Okay. On the first Saturday in April, we have our annual spring trail ride. You can rent a horse, or bring your own, or take a wagon ride. It's a great way to experience the beauty of the Empire Ranch and Cienegas National Conservation Area. Just a few weeks ago, we celebrated National Day of the Cowboy at the ranch. We actually have an attendee in the audience today. It's a family event with demonstrations, presentations, ranch tours. Each summer, classic Western movies are celebrated and shown outdoors at the Empire Ranch and also on the big screen at the Loft Cinema in Tucson. This year we're showing OK Corral. There's a huge list of movies that have been filmed at the Empire Ranch for whoever's interested, like a whole page. And we have that at our booth. On the second Saturday in December, we decorate the Empire Ranch House for Christmas and have a fun celebration to start off the holidays. We have music, vendors, cookies, make and take decorations, and best of all, an Empire Ranch Santa. Trained docents provide walking tours of the historic Empire Ranch House on the second and fourth Saturday of each month at 11 a.m. Please go online to make reservations. Except y'all. You're all gonna go today, if you're lucky. Membership in the Empire Ranch Foundation provides vital support for the continued historic preservation of the Empire Ranch. Annual memberships begin at $50 and keeps you informed through quarterly newsletters and invitations to members-only events. For more information, please visit our website or give us a call. Thank you so much for this opportunity to tell you about the Empire Ranch and the Foundation. I want to do a little bit of free speech here, or whatever, free. So I'm the president, and I've been the president for 6 years of my 1-year term. We are all volunteers, every single one of us. There is not one paid position within the Empire Ranch Foundation. As mentioned in the slideshow, we do get some funding for like the really big projects at the ranch, but all of the things that you'll see today, the folks that go, that's all done with monies that come in from donations, from memberships. So all the monies that comes in from our gift shop, from any events we do, from any funds that come in stays at the ranch house. It's not going into anybody's pocket. And so, you know, we have we have a pretty big core of volunteers. When I talk about the ranch or the work days, tomorrow is one, by the way, if you're not doing anything. We start at 8 o'clock in the morning and we finish at noon and we feed you lunch. It is for anyone and everyone. We have 40-year-olds up to 90-something-year-olds. It has nothing to do with physical strength or not. There's something for everyone to do. And the Empire Ranch, when you go and you see how beautiful the headquarters are, it's because of all of our volunteers. So please do join us. Does anyone have any questions that I might be able to answer?
One is, do you have a current map
Yes?
of it that you can show now, maybe?
Yes?
Okay.
Now?
Well, if you have one on the laptop.
I don't think so, but we have plenty of maps at our booth.
Okay.
And we have a nice big fold-out one that shows what state land, beer land, where you can camp. And that's also what I wanted to say, is it's open to the public, 365, 24/7, and it's 45,000 acres. You can come hike, bike, ride, camp, walk.
45,000? How many square miles is that?
I don't know. A lot,
There's
it's big,
there's 160 acres, no, 640 acres in a square mile.
so there you go.
So just divide
It's a
that by
lot.
divide it by 640.
When you turn off 83 and go over the cattle guard and see that whole huge open valley, that's all the Empire Ranch. And it's small compared to what it had been in its heyday.
The second is kind of a question and a comment. We've been going quite a few years, and every once in a while we stop and look in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always impressed. There's no one around, and it doesn't seem like there's any vandalism or
Correct.
theft.
Right.
Has that been true for
Yes.
all the
Yes.
years? It's just-
Yes.
That's remarkable
That's
for a
wonderful.
public, but.
Well, the truth of the matter is, you don't stumble upon the Empire Ranch per se. I mean, some people, we hear it all the time, oh, we drive by that sign, because there's a big sign on 83 that says Historic Empire Ranch. So the people who go there on purpose, if that makes sense. And most people are, they're just blown away by what it is, because you really do step back in time.
72 square miles.
There you go.
72 square miles. That's 40, you said
Thank you.
46,000 acres?
45, but
40, I did
Who's
46, but divide by 640, which is a square mile. So
yeah,
that should be.
it's a lot, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Does it go south of, is that 82?
It kind of doglegs around, so it both sits in Pima County and Santa Cruz County, which most people think it's Santa Cruz County because of how close it is to the county line. And it kind of does a L, sort of. So you can access it from 82. There is a BLM sign that says the Las
We
Cienegas.
drive all the way through, but on the
Mhm.
south side of 82, there's a gate you can go through and go back through some grasslands. And
Mhm.
That's the other
that's.
There's a lot of BLM land out there that isn't necessarily Las
That's what I
Cienegas.
was wondering.
But there is quite a bit of land holdings that BLM has.
Are there any horses or cattle permanently on the ranch at all?
There is. The Tomlinsons, who own the Bureau Ranch, have the lease on the Empire Ranch and all the other BLM lands in that area, including the Sands Ranch. And his wife sat on the board for several years, and he is and they're now on the advisory committee, and they're large, obviously, supporters of the Empire Ranch. They donate beef all the time for a lot of our functions and stuff. They're good people, super good. You never see cattle in the same place ever, because he's constantly moving them. He's a brilliant cattleman and an incredible businessman. So we're very lucky to have such a conscious VC. He's very, he has really brought together a lot of the agencies. They have a bio-planning meeting at the ranch in the spring and in the fall, and all sorts of agencies come. The forest come, the game and fish come, the erosion people come, the birding people come. All these people come all to the Empire Ranch to talk about what's important to them. And he's a very important part of that, because there's always been this, oh, they're the ranchers, oh, the BLM. Like there's always, this, whatever you want to call it. And it's really brought a lot, because we're sitting talking, we're people. You're not on, and so that's made a really big difference. Yes.
Do you know anything about the prairie dog colonies, how they're doing there?
They are there. We Foundation don't have anything to do with them, but they are there, and they seem to be doing well. A lot of people do come, because that's not too far from the headquarters as well.
Yeah.
Camping is in designated areas only.
Prairie dogs.
Yeah, prairie dogs.
And burrowing owls.
And burrowing
I mean, my
owls.
visitors, I take them there for that, and they just love that part of the ranch.
And antelope and wild
Yeah.
turkey, and yes, it's beautiful. Anybody else?
Yeah, what were they mining back in the day when they were?
Silver.
Silver? Whoa, moneymaker.
That's how it became the Empire Ranch, is because of that. It expanded so much.
Are they removing any of the invasive mesquite trees?
They actually have done a very large project of doing that, as a matter of fact. When you go out, you will see, they did a big project, and now they've come back, 5 years later, and started plucking them all out again, because they've tried several different ways of doing it. Some of them is just with a backhoe, other ones is with an excavator. And so yes, they are, because they want to preserve the grasslands, which is a benefit for the rancher, which is a benefit for the lands. And so, like I said, it's really, everybody's working together, which is amazing, for the better of the land and in public availability for all of us.
thank you and all the volunteers for all the work, because it's a wonderful place.
Thank you.
Yeah, really
Feel free to join us. And we have an email list, as I mentioned, out at our booth. So if you want to know what's going on, we send out e-blasts every few, now and then, once a month. It depends on how busy we are. And the Cowboy Festival, come see it. Who's come to the Cowboy Festival in this room? Nobody? For shame.
I have an
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.